Hey everyone, welcome back to Elevate Your AIQ, your home for insightful conversations on human-centric AI readiness, talent transformation, and the future of work. Today I'm excited to welcome Jacob Bank. He's the co-founder and CEO of Relay.app. It's a platform that enables everyday professionals to build and deploy AI agents that work proactively on their behalf. Jacob brings a remarkable through line to this conversation, from a PhD research program on multi-agent systems at Stanford to founding an AI-powered calendar startup, which was acquired by Google, to leading product teams at Google, including Gmail and Google Calendar, and now building what he calls a team of AI coworkers for the rest of us. Jacob and I explore what it really means to manage AI agents, why great people managers may have a natural edge in the AI era, and how to think about trust, oversight, and scaling automation responsibly. Sit back, tune in, and get ready to elevate your artificial intelligence quotient. Thanks so much for listening. Hey everyone, it's Bob Pulver. Welcome back to Elevate Your AIQ. I am excited to talk to Mr. Jacob Bank today. How are you doing today, Jacob?
I'm doing well, Bob. Nice to talk to you.
Likewise. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule. I really wanted to dig into your personal sort of journey from school. You've done some cool things, worked at some cool places, built some excellent tools. So I want to hear about that story, but certainly, spent a lot of time in Relay and Relay.app, those who aren't familiar, and just kind of understand where that sits in the growing AI ecosystem. And I'm just excited to dig in. So why don't we start with your background and what led you to start Relay?
My career started in AI research. I was pursuing a PhD in the AI lab at Stanford, and I was in a research group called the Multi-Agent Systems Research Group. This was back in 2011.
Wow.
And it's so funny because now people, when they say, oh, I was so early to AI, I've been working on it since 2022, or I was so early to agents, I've been working on them since 2021. When I joined the Multi-Agent Systems Lab in 2011, I felt like I was really late to AI agents because my advisor who started the lab, he wrote the seminal paper. It was called Agent-Oriented Programming, that kind of described this abstraction of an AI agent and how it had knowledge and beliefs and intentions and how you could interact with it over time. It was called Agent-Oriented Programming. He wrote that paper in 1992. And so it's, there's a deep and rich history to everything that's happening now. And so my PhD project was more specifically on how can we build an AI agent that helps us manage our time? We all procrastinate. We all overestimate our availability. We all spend too much time in meetings and emails and not enough time doing what's really important to us, both in our personal lives and professional lives. And so we were working on a project where you would have this AI agent that would help you understand what was important to you and what you want to prioritize, and then it would help you schedule your time to do that. I ended up dropping out of my PhD to start my first company, which was an AI-powered digital calendar called Timeful. I started the company with my two co-advisors, so it's sort of a continuation of our academic research. And that AI agent that helped you manage your time manifested as a digital calendar. And it was a special AI-powered digital calendar where you could say, here are my goals, here are my habits, here are my tasks, here are my projects, here's all the stuff I want to get done. Help me figure out how to manage my time to do so. We were then acquired by Google in 2015. And I spent 6 years at Google, where I led the product team for Gmail, for Google Calendar, for several other workspace productivity tools. And the vision of kind of Timeful joining into Google was, the way we described it at the time was, we wanted to refactor the traditional productivity tools from being just like a place where I go to send emails or a place where I go to write documents into a much more active, assistive experience that would help you get stuff done. It turns out we were just like 10 years too early, and we weren't ready. The technology wasn't ready. Customers weren't ready. We still built some useful AI-powered features in all of those products, to be sure, from spam filter to spam filter, of course, pre-existed, but we improved the spam filter, anti-phishing techniques, smart reply, etc. Then I left Google in 2021 to found the company that would become Relay.app. And I thought, okay, now it's time. We're ready. And so the original name of the company was Collab AI. And the idea was an AI employee or an AI coworker that would not just chat with you, but actively do work on your behalf. We were still a little too early, but this time we were only 2 years too early and not 15 years too early. And so 2 years too early was like close enough to write that the company was able to succeed. But yeah, so this has been my entire career, essentially. And through the lens of we all have more that we want to get done than we have time to do it. How can we bring AI to bear as a tool that we can leverage to achieve our personal and professional goals? And now we're finally there. We can get leverage through teams of AI coworkers that work for us.
I have to just probe your Timeful piece just a little bit because I've been using Gmail since it existed, I think. So thank you.
I can't claim credit for that. I only joined after it already had 800 million users.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. But specifically on the calendaring thing, this is a lifelong struggle for me. And I'm just wondering, like, where some of those smart capabilities, went. And that's not necessarily like LLM based anything, right? I mean, that's
This
just
was all pre-LLM. So
yeah.
there were features that, like, if you're going to meet multiple people, it suggests times that might be appropriate for you to meet them. If you have tasks, it suggests when you might be able to do those tasks on your calendar. We had a feature called goals that would automatically schedule your habits on your calendar. But most of our, like, post Timeful acquisition, most of the work we did was in Gmail. If you've used Gmail, you know that there's a feature. If you've forgotten to reply to someone or you've sent them an email that's expecting a reply and they haven't responded to you, it brings it back to your attention and says, hey, were you still expecting to hear from Bob about this? So a lot of little features like that throughout the Gmail experience that tried to help, keep you on track with whatever we thought you were trying to do.
Yeah, I think some of those features have saved me a few times. I just need them to be more consistent, I suppose.
Yeah, and because the mental model, is a totally different. There, the mental model was like, you're coming into Gmail, you're doing your work. We want to have a really high bar. We don't want to interrupt you unnecessarily because you're in flow, you're doing your productive work. Now, the contract with an AI agent is substantially different. It's not just like a little nudge that lives within a productivity tool that you're going to visit. It's really a full-fledged coworker that has responsibilities that it performs on your behalf. And it's a totally different way of thinking about work. Instead of like, I go to this productivity tool to do my job, is I direct my AI worker with what I want them to do. And then I provide feedback, of course. I review the content, I give suggestions. But I think the way I've often phrased it is like, even if you've never been a manager before, you're a manager now. We're all managers now. Like, that is the skill set we need. And as you know, like, becoming a people manager is a skill. You learn how to break, big strategic goals into the responsibilities that map to different roles. You learn how to give those people guidance on what tasks they should do and how they should get feedback and assistance from other people in the company. You learn how to give them feedback. And so that's the skill set we all need to develop. So I think people who are very good people managers are actually very well suited to being great AI managers also.
I'm just thinking back to the, that very early, paper that your, co-founder and mentor wrote. I mean, were they thinking about some of these kinds of things and the disruption that might cause to the hierarchical structure of an organization?
I think, the original work on agents did not forecast teams of AI agents working in knowledge work. Like, this was even, that predated Gmail by 12 years. Like, it predated the web. And so I don't think that paper kind of had a specific view on like org design and the economy when agents are doing much, like all the stuff that we're talking about now. I don't think that paper forecasted that, but I think that paper did lay down a very useful conceptual framework for the knowledge an agent has, the beliefs an agent has, the goals an agent has, how you instruct your AI agent to update those or give it tasks to do. But it was much more of like a theoretical framework for how to work with an AI entity and less of a practical application of how to build a business based on those entities.
Yeah. That definitely sounds so. While you were doing all of that, I was connecting some of IBM's biggest clients to IBM Research, and so it sounds like a lot of those types of projects that, look, we've got the conceptually, this is how we think this can evolve, but until somebody pays us and we build something in industrial strength, we're not necessarily in a position yet to sort of forecast H2 H3 kinds of horizons.
Yeah, and now I think we're obviously not getting close enough to be able to like very accurately forecast like what is economic growth going to look like, what is unemployment going to look like, how do different companies are going to look like. We're not yet ready to forecast that at a super precise degree, but I think we can already forecast like directionally how knowledge work is going to be different. Like directionally, the tasks of knowledge work are going to be very different. Like if you have a job that is taking a prompt for, we want to write a blog post about X, and your job is just to write the blog post about X, like that job is not going to exist anymore. There's going to be a job that is figuring out the strategy of the blog and directing the agents to write and edit the blog posts and injecting human anecdotes and reviewing the content. But it's much the same way as like computer used to be a job title, right? Not a device. A computer was a job title, like of someone who performed calculations. And now it has transitioned from a job title into a physical device that we all have. And I'm not saying email marketer will translate into a device. It doesn't quite map, but like I think many of the job titles that exist today will become AI agent capabilities, and then a whole bunch of new job titles will arise for us to work with and harness those AI agents to achieve our goals.
Yeah, I agree very much so. And I think that the human involvement, as we think about the evolution of all these agents and agentic workflows and things like that, whether it's today or 6 months from now, I still think the humans provide important sort of connective tissue, between all these things. Now, that role itself may evolve, and what that connective tissue is actually doing may differ by role and maturity and things like that. But I still think it's important for people to start to sort of adjust how they think about the architecture of work itself, and how things might be redesigned, and how your role needs to, or what role you play needs to sort of evolve along with it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's many good examples of this from history. Like in the olden days, people would often have a secretary, and that secretary would just read and transcribe. Like, I take the things that someone wrote to you in physical letters, I read them to you, and I draft physical letters back. And that role doesn't exist anymore. But there is a still role for an executive assistant that handles scheduling and other support tasks. And now maybe if the AI gets good at scheduling, you can imagine the executive assistant role up-leveling further to being a strategic thought partner and a confidant. And so that's not, I'm certainly not smart enough to forecast like exactly what jobs will change to what degree. I mean, everyone was talking last week about that Anthropic radar chart, right? Where it showed what percentage of different industries were within the theoretical window of what AI can do. And I think it's very hard for anyone to forecast exactly how that's going to look. But I think the advice I'm giving to myself and to everyone else is adapt as rapidly as possible as tools come out to understand what they're good at and how you can leverage them. Also understand the trajectory of where they're going so that you have a sense of like, well, this is not possible yet, but I'm sure in 6 months it will be. And then I'm always trying to think like, what is the unique human connection or insight or taste that I'm injecting into this that is going to remain like the core of my work, while much of the other execution happens by AI agents perform that work.
Yeah, I think the scheduling one is a really interesting example that I hit on when I sort of pivoted out of enterprise technology and enterprise transformation into the talent space. One of the first use cases that I saw as a industry analyst in the HR technology space was in talent acquisition. There were recruiting coordinators, and a lot of their job was just the back and forth. Can you meet here? Can you meet then? How about this? How about that? Remote versus in person. And it's actually it was more complicated than I thought it was, but it's essentially a solved problem now that you seem to have laid the groundwork for, many moons ago. But
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, scheduling is still quite hard, not
yeah,
because it's mechanically difficult to find a slot that overlaps on several calendars. It's that when there's no slot available, there's a lot of like really nuanced social interaction that needs to happen where it's like, well, Bob is more important than Jacob for this meeting. So like we can make Jacob optional or live without Jacob, or tell Jacob like he better move something else if he wants to be at this meeting. And so a lot of, what the really elite executive assistants in a large corporation do is not just like find an open slot on a calendar. It's when they're confronted with an impossible scheduling problem, their very deep understanding of like the social nuances and the relationship enables them to crack it. And That's actually, I don't think something that AI is going to be able to solve that soon. Whereas if it's just like a candidate and an engineering manager who both have lots of availability finding a time together, yes, AI can totally solve that problem.
Yeah, I would say, speaking as a former chief of staff, that is definitely a human problem to solve, coordinating steering committees and senior leadership meetings.
Yeah, but I think there are a lot of other the kind of the thing that I think is scary to folks is there are a lot of other jobs that required a huge amount of education and credentials that are very well suited to AI taking on. For example, like accounting. We had this kind of complex transaction reconciliation we need to do last month because we get paid in lots of different countries and different currencies and different time zones, and we need to make sure it all at the end of the month reconciles to the report. And it was really hard to get the math to add up between refunds and chargebacks and foreign currency conversions and all of that. And so we just threw all of the raw data at Claude and said, can you do a reconciliation for the last month? And it like concocted a perfect spreadsheet, which is like, here's the exact reconciliation. Here's why this number is off by 5 cents and this number is off by 4 cents. And those are just like intermediate rounding errors based on foreign exchange. And that previously would have taken an expert accountant many hours. I mean, another example is legal documents. Now, there are certainly cases where highly experienced lawyers provide.
Welcome to Ghosted by the Machine, the podcast about work, hiring, and all the things no one explains after you click Submit Application. We talk about broken hiring systems, AI filters that eat resumes for sport, recruiter ghosting, and the very real humans trying to survive it. Each episode features real stories, honest conversations, and just enough sarcasm to stay sane. No buzzwords, no thrill to announce, no advice written by an algorithm pretending to be a thought leader. If you've ever wondered where your application went, you are in the right place. This is Ghosted by the Machine. No resume required.
Critical judgment and experience based on like nuanced situations. But there's a lot of other cases where they're just reviewing documents to make sure they hit a standard set of points. And like, yeah, AI can do that very well, that very well too. And so I don't know what it's going to look like in the long run. At least my lens on it is that we work with small businesses, and small businesses are always overwhelmed and always have more work to do than they need time for. And so if we can tell a small business that they can get leverage by hiring a team of AI agents to do it for them, and they never would have ever had the budget to hire a team of people, like, that's amazing for them. And so that's sort of like the narrower lens on the problem I understand, which is like small business owners getting a lot of leverage from AI agents.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think there's just so much opportunity for small, medium businesses to take advantage of this and almost leapfrog, some of what we saw, a decade ago with just regular automation.
It used to be that small businesses had a really hard time competing with larger companies because larger companies had just had more people, more resources, could do more things. And I think the exciting thing about AI is actually that it's going to really level the playing field between businesses of various shapes and sizes. And so I think one of the net results will be there will be more smaller companies. So fewer people will work at like 200,000, 250,000 person mega corporations, and lots of people will work at like 5, 10, 15, 20 person businesses that are doing way more than they ever would have been able to accomplish before with that small number of people.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, Relay is one of those companies where you've been able to scale without adding more humans, right?
Yeah, we're 9 people. I think in the olden days, like 4 years ago, if we were following, the traditional venture path pattern, we'd probably be triple the number of people that we are, kind of to serve the same size customer base and the same complexity of business. And more importantly, looking forward, I see no reason with our current business strategy that we could not serve certainly 10 times, probably 100 times as many customers with roughly the same size team.
That's incredible.
Which is wild. Now there are many things that we're not doing. Like, we don't do high-touch enterprise sales. That still requires people. We don't do high-touch consulting. That still requires people. But if you just build a really high-quality self-serve product and people discover it on their own, adopt on their own, and pay on their own, like, you can scale to quite a large business with not that many people these days.
Yeah. So maybe this is a good point where we can just kind of circle back a little bit, Jacob, and just talk about, what the Relay platform is and where, you kind of sit in the broader ecosystem of AI solutions.
Yeah, the way I describe it is everyone should basically have 3 different types of AI tools that they're using. Everyone should have a go-to chatbot. That could be ChatGPT, it could be Claude, it could be Gemini. That's where you go for text-based, synchronous, kind of one-off interactions. Like, I need to brainstorm with someone about my strategy, or I want you to do this one-time financial reconciliation based on this spreadsheet. And I want to have this sort of like text back and forth. I want to converse with AI as a thought partner. That's number one. I think everyone listening will be familiar with that. The second is the Copilot that I delegate tasks to. I'm still babysitting it. Like, you may have used Claude Cowork, or maybe you've used tools like, I don't know, Lovable for making websites, or Gamma for creating slide decks, where you tell it in text what you want to achieve, and then it goes off and does a bunch of work in the background to achieve that. So for example, I can tell Claude Cowork, write the new email newsletter and upload it in this way and check against the recent campaigns to write a good subject line. And I will see, it will open a browser tab. I will watch exactly what it's doing as it's going, and then I'll eventually, chime in and work with it. That second model is significantly more capable than the first because it's not just a conversational thought partner. It is actually a doer of work that you can delegate tasks to, but it's still something that you can think of as like an Iron Man suit where I'm directing it, I'm controlling what it does, I'm babysitting and reviewing it, and it's doing work on my behalf. Then the third model is you build autonomous AI workers. And the autonomous AI workers, they wake up on their own, they do work on their own, they do that work repeatedly, they do that work directly, and they get better and better over time. And that's what we have at Relay.app. We have autonomous AI workers that are automatically triggered by new emails coming in, by new events being scheduled, by new entries being added to our CRM, by new customers subscribing to our service. And then they perform a set of responsibilities as workflows. It might be welcoming a new customer, it might be briefing them before a meeting, it might be auto-replying to a certain class of emails, etc. And they may have these autonomous workers may have a human in the loop. And so people should think about, and I think that's the ecosystem basically everyone needs. Everyone needs a go-to chatbot. For many people these days, it's increasingly becoming Claude. Everyone needs a go-to sort of like Iron Man suit that while they're sitting down at their computer, they can delegate tasks on the fly and have it do work. For me and many people, that's Claude Cowork. And then everyone needs a workbench for managing their AI team. And that's what Relay.app is, where each AI worker has a set of apps that it has access to, has a set of workflows that it performs, has some knowledge that it has, some skills, some context. And you can both interact with it by chatting with it, but it's at its best when it's just working for you automatically based on the guidance you've given it up front.
Have you essentially combined the autonomous piece, so the third leg of that stool? Have you essentially combined, these autonomous agents with like workflow automation?
Exactly. You could think of it as an evolution of traditional workflow automation tools, where in the olden days, you could say in Zapier or Make or NN or whatever, like when an email comes in, log to my spreadsheet the from address of that email. Now, you can inject intelligence into those workflows. You could say, look up Bob online, decide if he's a target customer for us, look him up in our CRM, only add him, under these circumstances. And so you could think of this third class as sort of like a combination of traditional workflow automation tools with the much more intelligent and capable AI modeling of like a Claude Cowork.
Got it. Okay. So thinking about a small business, right? Do I even need the CRM? I mean, I know I need something to have. I need like a database.
Yeah.
Right. I need like that. So, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. I don't know if I'm taking you down a AI eating SaaS kind of path, but you've got tight budgets. You want to invest in these tools. Right now, I'm spending God knows how much on a variety of tools, at least until I figure out where I want to land in each of those categories. But there's always some extra stuff, right? I need something that publishes something. I might need to go to GitHub. I need to go to these other places. So can you then redirect some of your investment in some other subscription services towards these autonomous agents?
You definitely still need like a database of contacts and prospects. You definitely still need like a database of tasks. I think in kind of the SaaS era of whatever, 2013 to 2023, you would select all of these tools based on their platform capabilities and the user experience of interacting with them. Like maybe you selected Linear as your issue tracking tool because it has the best UI for managing issues, or maybe you selected HubSpot as your CRM because it had the best UI for going in and managing deal stages or contacts. I think the way you will select SaaS tools going forward is primarily based on how easy those tools make it for your agents to do work on your behalf. That's not to say their UIs will be irrelevant. There will still be times when you need to log into HubSpot. There will still be times when you need to log into Linear for a variety of reasons, tweak things, double check things, change things. But the primary interaction with I never log into Linear, which is our issue track. I never log into Linear. I just direct my agents to make issues in Linear. I direct my agents to follow up with people who haven't done issues in Linear. I direct my agents to look up things I still need to do. I once in a while log in to mark something as a duplicate or tweak something or things that I would have been more convenient to do in the tool than just in the agent. But I think, so is it a good use of my time as a small business owner to vibe code my own CRM? Definitely not. Please don't do that. That is buy the thing for $20 a month. That's a terrible use of your time. Now, do I need to pay way more for something that differentiates itself based on an easier to use UI for humans? That's no longer really, really important. And so maybe I think a legitimate decision would be maybe you decide instead of having to buy separately HubSpot and Airtable and Google Workspace Suite and Linear, maybe you just decide I'm just going to use Monday as my CRM, my project track. I'm just going to use Monday as my database for CRM, project tracking, content calendar, and then my agents just have to work with one place. And it could be Monday, it could be Airtable, it could be HubSpot. I do think there is a legitimate argument for platform consolidation because one of the reasons we typically needed to use multiple different platforms is that Linear has a super nice specialized UI for issue tracking that maybe would have been hard to mimic in Airtable. And I think some of that will still be true because there could be data model specialization that's way better for task management or project management than it is for other things. And so net, I think people who are thinking about buying tools, you'll need to buy tools in basically the same categories you've always bought tools. They'll probably they'll get a little cheaper over time because they'll have less pricing power, and you'll need to care less about the user experience and more about the agent experience.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting way to think about it. Because I also think just the pricing model today of SaaS solutions might be cost prohibitive for some, if you're paying user-based, pricing and maybe as opposed to usage or value.
I think SaaS companies have a business model problem. SaaS buyers, we're in great shape. I love buying seat-based software with a smaller team. And so they may have to evolve their business models to adapt to that reality.
So let's talk about your team, which is you, 8 other humans, and then, 40
About
agents?
60 agents, yeah.
60 agents. So just give me, you don't have to tell me all about each one, but categorically, how are you using them?
I think the most useful way to break it down, sorry, this is going to sound very corporate and management consulting-y, but I know that's a language you speak. I like to think about the 3 different categories of a typical business. There's G&A, general and administrative. That's HR, finance, legal, accounting, etc. There's go-to-market, which is sales, marketing, success, support. And then there's R&D, which is product, engineering, design, development, etc. And so we have, of course, agents across all of those. But the nature of the work is quite different in those 3 different categories of work. So Relay.app is focused on G&A and go-to-market, primarily. Because in G&A and go-to-market, the responsibilities of the agents tend to follow a more consistent, repeated pattern. G&A, especially, is very consistent. Every month, the financial reconciliation looks the same. Every new employee that's onboarded looks the same. Every employee that's offboarded looks the same. Every recruiting pipeline looks the same. Every, legal contract analysis looks the same. G&A is much more suited to encoding into this sort of workflow, flowchart-based system that makes Relay.app agents work very, very reliably. Go-to-market is somewhere in between, where a lot of it is very repeated and can fit into a flow chart. Like every time we get a new lead, we qualify them in this way. Every time a sales call is done, we do this sort of like templated contracting process. And then there are some like unique elements of GTM, like we're doing a cool new campaign to like do a team hike or whatever. And so, but I would say GTM work is still quite easy to coach an agent to learn over time how to perform these rhythmic tasks really, really well. R&D is substantially different because yes, there are rhythmic and consistent elements of R&D, like every month we send out a changelog of all the features we've launched, or every time a bug is fixed, we close the loop with that customer. But a lot more of R&D is bespoke, right? Like we're building this new initiative or doing this new thing. And so for our company, we use agents in all of them, but the workflow style agents that Relay.app is good at are best suited to G&A and go-to-market. And then the coding agents and software engineering agents that, companies like Anthropic with Claude Code or Cursor are building are way better suited to our R&D processes. So I think basically you want to think about hiring agents everywhere, but different agents have different skills and strengths. So you need to kind of pick the right platform for the right type of environment.
No, that's really impressive. I mean, certainly something aspirational for the average.
Yeah, and so like to get more concrete, like every single small business has some G&A functions. You get invoices, you get bills, you get contracts that you have to review. You have new employees starting, you have employees quitting, you need to do recruiting. Like you better be building agents for all of that stuff. HR, recruiting, finance, legal, business operations, et cetera. Like if you're not, you're probably spending a lot of time doing that work yourself and that you could be doing more strategic tasks with. And then second, every small business has some go-to-market motion. They do some sort of marketing, they do some sort of sales, they do some sort of customer support. That too, you better be using agents there. And for different businesses, it's different. If you have a business that markets primarily on social media and over email, you want agents that are helping you research and create content. If you're a business that primarily does direct sales, you want AI agents that are helping you identify leads and booking meetings and prepping you for those meetings and following up. And so I think in the same way that running a business requires creativity of who to hire and how to give them responsibilities today, similarly, it requires creativity of how you set up the right agents. And so I'm very skeptical that every small business is just going to like buy an out-of-the-box AI accountant. It doesn't check out to me because like the role of an accountant is actually like quite different from company to company depending on what tools they use and what the entire like scope of work the accountant needs to do is. And so our bet at Relay is that most small businesses are going to need to create their own AI agents that are suited to the tools, the goals, the business processes of that individual business.
Of the 60 or so agents, are some of these what some refer to as sub-agents, or are they all sort of peer agents to each other?
At the moment, for us, every agent reports to a person. I don't know if this will be true forever, but I think it will be true for quite a while.
Okay.
I think the agents will get more and more complex and they'll take on more and more responsibilities. But I think every agent will still need, who's the human I go to give me guidance about this thing.
Right. But right now you've got at least a 5-to-1 agent to human ratio.
Yeah, I mean, the agents definitely interact with each other. Like when one agent has finished uploading the YouTube video, another agent will write the LinkedIn post based on that YouTube video. So they interact with each other and work together. But ultimately, if an agent needs a human to review something or needs a human to fix something, they do have to know which human should fix that.
I wanted to circle back on a point you made about like don't go designing your.
Are you tired of talent and HR podcasts that sound like corporate training videos? Same. Talentless is the no-fluff show about hiring, leadership, culture, and what's actually going on in the world of work. Talentless is a podcast for recruiters by recruiters. Hosted by Desiree Goldie and Ashley King, they're smart, occasionally salty, and never afraid to say what everyone else is thinking. Listen wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe at talentlesspodcast.com.
Your own, CRM or some, platform kind of solution because of, the advent of these, vibe coding tools, Lovable, Base44, Replit, et cetera. I'm sure people are attempting to do some complicated things. But I was curious to just dig into your. I know you've got some kind of like a design philosophy or principles that you think about where something can be done on a small scale versus something that's going to be like a real production asset.
Yeah, my first observation is that most people don't want to build software. They just want to run their business and get work done. Like a typical small business owner does not want to design their own CRM, even if they could. Like they're not a software designer. That's not their thing. Their thing is being a plumber or being an interior designer or being a real estate agent or whatever. And so I think there are a couple of business principles that are relevant here. Like one business principle is like focus as much of your time as possible on the uniquely differentiating element of what makes you successful and as little time as possible on everything else. And then the second principle is that most people are not builders. They just want to do their jobs. And I think if you put those two together, like it's going to be very rare that it makes sense for a small business to vibe code their own CRM. Now, if this small business has a person who's really has a builder mindset and loves building things, and they think that they can build a CRM that makes them materially better at following up with customers than those using off-the-shelf CRM, it's just hard. Like it's hard for me to compute. It's hard for me to imagine that. It doesn't check out. Now, having a small business build a bespoke landing page using Lovable, that makes perfect sense to me. Like that seems like a very reasonable thing to do. Every small business has a website. And like, yeah, if you can make your website better and more capable and get the right customer information and give customers better visibility into how their job is going or whatever, like that's all good. But I don't know I don't think there are that many small businesses where like rebuilding their own internal productivity tools is going to give them massive leverage.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think this is partly ties to when I talk about like AI literacy and readiness is let's teach you enough so that you can then reflect on your own work and say, what are some, acute problems that I run into with some consistency where I could build something that is more agent level, like task or activity level, or maybe it's a couple things, maybe it is a multi-agent, thing or whatever. But let me start with there's this one thing that is either really time consuming or really frustrating, or it's taking me away from the things that I either enjoy or the things that I'm good at, or both. And can I build something, responsibly and safely for myself and for my team and for the organization? And can I get my hands dirty and just start with that and just start experimenting in that way?
Here's the progression I typically see people go through. The first thing they start with is, what are tasks that I'm already doing that I think the AI could do at least as well as I can do, but with way less effort and hassle from me? Like, I am already writing a follow-up note in the CRM after every meeting, but it sure would be nice if the AI just did that for me automatically and saved me, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. That's kind of level one. Things you are already doing that you want to delegate to an AI to do for you. Number two is things that you are capable of doing, but don't do today because they're way too time consuming. For example, look up the exact usage profile of every single customer and send them a beautifully personalized email about exactly the problem they're running into and exactly what they might want to do to fix it. That's something you could do if you have infinite time. You could go through every single customer, look at everything about them and do it, but it just wouldn't have been time effective. That's step two. Another example of that is like, I want to know every time people are talking about AI agents on Reddit or Twitter or YouTube. I don't have time to read every single Twitter thread or watch every single YouTube video. So that's kind of step two. Things that you are capable of doing, but that you don't do now because they would take way too much time that you delegate to AI agents. And then level three is things that you are not capable of doing that you would have to hire an external expert for that instead you can use AI to do. Like my transaction reconciliation exercise where it's like, I'm not good enough with spreadsheets and accounting to figure that out, but like I can articulate the problem well enough to give to an external expert that I can let the AI do it. And so once, level one is nice, right? It's saving you time, but it's not really multiplying your effectiveness. It's really when you get into levels 2 and 3 that you start multiplying your effectiveness.
Yeah, and I think if you are at an organization where there are, potentially hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people, you start to think more broadly about the, how that scales, right? And it doesn't necessarily scale linearly, and it's not necessarily a straight arithmetic to say, okay, I've got this percentage of people ready, therefore I should be, that percentage, more efficient or effective as an organization. It doesn't really work that way. But the more people that have that sort of mindset and start thinking along those lines, the more you can sort of share and coalesce that knowledge and say, okay, how can we sort of amplify that impact and, you know, make a more material impact on what the organization is trying to do. So I think that's really important for people. And that's why I think everyone needs to go through some level of AI literacy training, whether you're technical or
Yeah,
not.
no, this is not, it's not optional. Like,
Yeah.
it's like saying,
Yeah.
I'm told there are still some CEOs that don't interact with computers, that like they still have their secretaries, print everything out on paper and they do that. I'm like, yeah, there are probably some people who are in such a position of power and influence and have such a stable or such a mature business that they'll be able to stay, that not need to learn AI in the way that people didn't need to learn computers. But for most of us, you're going to have to know it. Like, this is going to be a requirement of being an effective worker in like the future.
I think this ties to when I talk about human centricity with all of this. I mean, I think part of that literacy is really understanding what is our sort of evolving role, but also making sure that we're not building things that cause harm or create some kind of ethical dilemma and things like that. So along those lines, I guess I was curious about how you've instilled these sort of responsible and ethical principles with your team and how you incorporate some of that into how you do evaluations of all the things that you're building.
When in doubt, think about an AI agent like an employee that you're hiring. It's a very helpful mental model because it solves a lot of problems that would otherwise be hard to reason about. Like, well, when you hire an AI agent, how do you tell it what to do? Well, how do you tell a person what to do? You give them a job description, you give them some responsibilities. When an AI agent has done a task in a way that you don't like, what do you do? Well, what do you do with the person? You give them some feedback. And so the same thing with safety and responsibility. I think about like, well, what are our code of conduct principles that we have for our employees? Like, we don't look at customer data without permission. We don't lie about anything. We don't cheat in these, important ways. Like, and so, I don't think there's any real new thinking that needs to go on there. If you set up a structure of how people should behave in your company, then that is exactly the same way that AI agents should behave.
I wonder if people are getting the right guidance. I guess it depends on the maturity of the organization and how and where they're adopting it within different departments and things like that. But it just seems like in everyone's haste to try to learn how to hands to keyboard, how to build stuff. I guess I'll continue to be somewhat concerned that people are learning how to do things the right way the first time and think about what data you're feeding it, how you're training it, and the importance of some of those evaluations, which is quite different than traditional software development. When I
I
was
think that's why we need to think of it not like doing software development. It's more like hiring an employee. Like, the mental model is much more similar to hiring an employee. How you give guidance, how you give responsibilities, how you check in over time, how you give feedback, what's allowed, what are things we're allowed to do at the company, what are things we're not allowed to do at the company. Like, that's the right mental model. Like, there are lots of companies that have gotten into trouble, for example, of giving their sales team access to confidential customer data from another part of the business, for example. Like, that's a thing that many companies have done with their human employees. And I'm sure many companies are doing it with their AI agents now too. But it's kind of the exact same ethical shortcoming that would have existed in a human organization too.
Yeah, it's interesting because on some level I've tried to avoid anthropomorphizing some of the technology, but your point is well taken in the sense that, these aren't deterministic, solutions like we used to test software where there's only so many buttons and levers you can press, right? What happens when this is on and this is off and someone clicks here and this is the drop down. These are your 6 choices, whatever. You don't have that. You've got this open-ended, you have no idea what someone's going to ask for or how they're going to, tie what data source to what, execution, modality or what have you.
Yeah, and I think the most important variable is not so much that the AI is more non-deterministic than software, though that may be true in some cases. I just think that the way we're interacting with the AI agent and the work that it's doing is just more akin to what a person does. Like, it's not a piece of software that you log into. It makes spreadsheets for you. It writes emails for you. It makes calendar events for you. It does all the stuff that a human assistant or coworker would do for you. And so I think it's just it really simplifies our mental model because we already know how to work with other people. We know like, we've all hired people that can, we've all ourselves been careless in certain situations. We've certainly all hired people who have been careless in certain situations, updating the wrong CRM entry, moving a calendar event to the wrong time, not accounting for time zones correctly. Those are all the exact same things our AI agents do wrong.
Yeah, I think there was a case with Amazon the other day. I only saw the headline, so I don't want to dig too far into it, but it was like they had built some agents that were doing some things and it started sending out all the wrong information to the wrong people or whatever. And it's just like, that's why you got to do these evaluations. That's why humans need to be.
Yeah, I mean, the big difference between AI agents and human coworkers is that AI agents are much faster. So if a human is sending out emails to the wrong person, maybe a human can send an email every few minutes. An agent can send multiple emails every second. And so even though the type of mistake an AI agent can make is very similar to the type of mistake a careless person can make, the blast radius can be much larger because AI agents are so fast.
So this comes up all the time when we talk about in talent acquisition, when we talk about potential bias, right? It's not that humans aren't biased. It's that one recruiter is only handling so many job requisitions and the AI can do that 24/7 with no vacation, right? So it's the scalability of the bias once it's encoded that could go unchecked. That is the fear.
Yeah, and the nice thing about AI agents is that, in my experience, they're much more coachable than people, like from a bias perspective. It's like you can definitely coach an AI agent and say, here's why I think you made some mistakes here. Maybe it was a bias at play, maybe it was not, but here's how we want to do things differently. Whereas with the person, it can be very hard to change like deeply held unconscious biases.
I have had that conversation many, many times. You can only have so much bias training and interview training. And whereas, if you have the transparency and the explainability of the model, you can fix it at once and then,
and that's a key tip. Whenever I have an AI agent doing a classification task for me of some sort, like, should I reply to this email? Is this a qualified customer? I always ask the AI to explain its rationale for me. Always explain your rationale. Because then when it explains its rationale, you can see why it thought what it thought, and then you can correct it for next time and say, oh, you thought that this candidate was not qualified because they only are 4 years out of school, not 5 years out of school. But look at how amazing their open source contributions are. Like, we should totally consider them in person, consider them and not hold so rigidly to the 5 years of experience standard, for example.
So Jacob, I know you've sort of given advice throughout this conversation, but any closing, thoughts and recommendations to my listeners who are probably all over the spectrum in terms of their AI comfort?
I think wherever you are, go one step further. So if you're comfortable, if you're not using any AI, just go fire up Claude or ChatGPT and ask it to have a strategic conversation about your role or your business. Just kind of dip your toe in the water of figuring out what it's like to work with a chatbot. If you're already pretty good at working with a chatbot, install Claude Cowork. Ask it to do a couple tasks for you on your machine. If you're already getting pretty good at Claude Cowork, then come to Relay.app and set up your first AI agent that's going to work proactively and automatically on your behalf. Once you've delegated your first task, which is like a mundane thing that you're doing already today, try to ask it to do something you're not doing today. Then try to, up level into making it an expert. So you don't have to have a team of 60 agents tomorrow. That's not a realistic goal. Just go one step further than you are today. And I think at some point you'll cross this tipping point where you don't have to tell yourself to go use AI. It'll just suck you in because it's making you so much more effective.
Yeah, trying to heed that advice every day. So what's next for Relay? What are you guys working on that you can share?
Yeah, what's next for us is right now, I think our AI agents sort of like 70% approximate working with a human coworker. they can't do everything a human coworker could do. They sometimes get confused. They have limited capabilities. Our goal is to basically get that 70% to 100%, make them supernatural to interact with, make them really easy to give feedback to, make them really easy to train and improve, make them more proactive in suggesting things they can do to help you. And my goal is that like every stressed out small business owner who feels like they have way too much to do by the end of 2026 won't be as stressed out because they'll be spending all of their time on like the human authentic thing that they do that they're amazing at, and they have a team of AI agents doing everything else for them.
Sounds like a plan. I mean,
we're going to try.
I have many folks to refer to Relay to get started for sure. And yeah, I know from their anecdotes about all the things that they could be doing that this would be a huge help. So I appreciate all the work that you're doing, and congrats on your success thus far. And I wish you guys the best. Thanks so much, Jacob.
Well, thanks, Bob. It was great to talk to you.
All right. Thanks again. And thanks everyone for listening. We will see you next time.